You know what, I just want to say congratulations to Russell T Davies for achieving world peace. Because obviously Doctor Who is an inherently political show, and naturally its discourse is going to be inherently political. So I want to congratulate Russell T Davies on finally uniting fans on both the left and right wings of the political spectrum in a beautiful chorus of "Please leave." Now, of course, I can only speak for myself. If you liked it, I really don't get it. I'm just gonna be completely straight up with you. I don't get it. But I'd never dream of insulting you for that. Alright, so this is an on-the-night reaction. I'm gonna be emotional. I'm gonna be a little hyperbolic in parts. Maybe. I don't know. But I can't really see my opinions on this changing anymore. So let's get stuck in. I'm breaking a lot of rules today, guys. I don't usually rush to my laptop to make a quick response to something I just watched. I usually take my time, let things marinate. But this doesn't even deserve that. Doctor Who has its ups and downs. It has its good episodes and bad episodes, but I can't see anyone defending this. Doctor Who, Season 2's finale, The Reality War. Now, the setup with Wishworld was wobbly. I liked the whole One Division stuff, even if I thought the whole Conrad thing was ridiculously on the nose. We get it, Russell. You're very angry with the right wing, okay? We get it. I can't say I'm a fan of him either, but my god, I'm so tired. I'm tired of the noise, and this kind of stuff is just noise. So we got an underdeveloped caricature of a political ideology as one of our main villains. The Rani coming in out of nowhere, but hey, at least she gets 2 episodes of screen time, right? And she wants to bring back Omega. So we've got villains that haven't ever really been relevant in pop culture before, bringing in more villains that, once again, aren't relevant in pop culture. The Daleks and the Cybermen are instantly recognizable, but they got mid-season episodes to establish them as a threat so that when they return for the finale, it would matter. Something that has not been afforded to poor Sutekh or the Rani, and my god, especially not Omega. I feel so sorry for Omega fans. Why does this matter? Don't worry, the Doctor is going to drop a Wikipedia exposition dump in the next episode to explain why you should be excited. Because that's all the first half of this episode is. Some random bullshit happens, and then the Doctor says, here's what this means. The Doctor gives a big exposition dump where he's effectively just reading off the Wikipedia page about the Rani. She comes in, she sees Mel again. Mel literally says, we meet again. And it is like bad fan fiction. And we've got an episode that's calling back to all these memories that the Doctor has of this marriage with Belinda and their child Poppy, the space baby. And then the episode quite literally shoves Belinda in a box so that the Doctor and Ruby can go fight the Rani and Conrad. Rani swept off the board incredibly quickly as Omega comes out and eats her. Mrs. Flood, I actually forgot what happened to her because this wasn't relevant in the slightest. A villain built up over 2 seasons just fucks off. I don't know what happened to her. It probably doesn't matter. Why she can break the 4th wall, I don't know. Why she ceases to break the 4th wall for this story, I still don't know. And then Omega, god, holy hell, Omega. This episode was really losing me with just the amount of shameless exposition. But when Omega came out, I laughed my ass off. I'm so sorry, Omega fans, I really am. So if you were hoping Omega would return, he's completely beyond recognition. We seem to have a new tradition of we bring back a villain from the classic era, change them into a CGI beast beyond all recognition for the finale. But in this case, he must have had like under a minute of screen time before the Doctor just blasts him back into the Underverse, using that Vindicator device from the rest of the series. There's Omega. You spent weeks speculating about what kind of role he'd play, what Omega would be like, and guess what? You've got a CGI ghoul, which does look impressive, I'll give it that doesn't resemble Omega in the slightest. He's on screen for a few seconds, he kills the Rani in a super undignified way after all that build-up of Mrs. Flood. It's so funny. It's really, really funny. Because I remember when the Eurovision episode where the Doctor beats up a genocide victim came on. While I thought it was laughable that they revealed the Rani in a post-credits, like people were supposed to know who that is, I was like, okay, at least our main villain, it gets to be introduced now so that she can consistently be in the 2 parts of the finale. That way she actually has some room to breathe, to develop. Whoops. No. No, she doesn't. I feel so sorry for Rani fans. Conrad gets a much better defeat, as Ruby wishes for him to just be happy, and he's a changed man now. And then they wish for all the Bone Dome stuff to go away and the world to go back to normal. Because we've got an episode now where we've got this MacGuffin, which is the baby, which is the god of wishes, which means that we can just wish all of these problems out of existence. Russell T Davies has kind of a reputation for, like, the Daleks go away button kind of storytelling. Convenient plot devices that put everything back in the box. And in order to get rid of Conrad's world, a sacrifice has to be made. Poppy, the baby of the Doctor and Belinda, is going to disappear. And it's interesting because, like, you get the start of what looks like an interesting conflict between Shirley, someone who's effectively suffering in Conrad's world, and Belinda, as Belinda wants to keep Conrad's world so she can keep her baby, but then Shirley is just like, no, hell no. But that lasts 10 seconds. That conflict lasts 10 seconds. We don't explore it for a second longer, just like Omega. And then I guess the wish just takes a little longer to take full effect, and the baby vanishes. And the Doctor and Belinda forget her, and it turns out they're in a new wish world, one that's not quite right, but the Doctor, despite being aware of the whole wish world fiasco, despite being aware of everything that's gone down, refuses to believe Ruby that they ever once had a baby. And it's like, Doctor, just hear her out for fuck's sake. Stranger things have happened. Why are you so silly? So then the Doctor is like, oh, I gotta set the timeline right, which means that I've got to regenerate. At least I think that's what caused him to regenerate. That's the thing, is I wasn't certain on why the 15th Doctor has to regenerate. I think what happened was that he was just willing to die to rewrite the universe for his friends and family because he loves them, and it's like, okay, that idea is nice on paper, but the execution is just head-scratching. It's just ridiculous. Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor comes in and gives him a pep talk. And I'm really, really not sure why this happened, but I won't lie, I was very excited to see Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor again, strangely. I've always wanted her to get a second shot, and well, congratulations, now the worst Jodie Whittaker episode of all time is no longer in Jodie Whittaker's own era. So anyway, Poppy now exists, but is like the child of Belinda and someone else, and we're shown scenes from the prior episodes that have now been altered to where Belinda is like, oh, I told you all along, I had to get home to my daughter. And we've done the old Russell T Davies gaslight trick from season 1 again. One of my biggest complaints with season 1, and I realize I didn't make a video about this at the time, was just how gaslighty the season mysteries were. How it's like, oh, Ruby's mother was just an ordinary woman, even though we'd completely telegraphed that she was actually something a bit more cosmic. And no, you can't just say that's me imparting importance on it. They made a very clear point of showing that her DNA couldn't be tracked by literally anything, aside from Roger Ackquillam apparently, but space ambulances, no way. And then she was pointing suddenly when she wasn't earlier, and then she was pointing at a sign which wasn't there in the original scene. It's just like, this isn't a good mystery, this is just narrative gaslighting. And it's like, if Belinda's whole reason for wanting to get home were to see her child again, they could have just said, I need to get home to my child. You don't have to say Poppy, you don't have to mention Richie in those scenes. But it's like, again, we are just withholding information in order to maintain a mystery and ensure that no one can actually guess it. That's not a mystery. That's just making things up as you go along and then gaslighting your audience into thinking these clues were there all along when they're not. And as an audience member, I do not like being treated that way. I couldn't believe they did it in Empire of Death, and I thought that was as bad as it would get. I figured, you know, it will get better from here. It's a learning experience. And that's another thing. There was so much benefit of the doubt. And that's also the truth, is I gave this era way more benefit of the doubt than I ever should have done. Because Russell T Davies was my childhood hero. And no, it's not just because, oh, he made my childhood show. No, because I made the Absorbal off. Because I sat on the Blue Peter couch with him and waxed lyrically about how much I loved his version of the show. Because he seemed like a super cool dude. And maybe he is, but what the hell has happened to the writing here? Genuinely, like, this era of Doctor Who is the most disappointing thing I've ever seen. I'm not saying it's the worst thing I've ever seen, although I do feel that way right now, but that's because I'm a little emotional. This is the most disappointing thing I've ever seen, because Russell T Davies did such a good job on seasons 1 through 4. Yes, they were flawed in parts, but they were at least of a high quality generally. They were at least sincere. This is cynical. This is withholding clues from the audience. This is just confusing the audience so that we'll clap when Jodie Whittaker shows up. We didn't see any more of Susan, by the way. I feel so sorry for Susan fans. No, but really, if you're excited about Susan after those teases in the Intergalactic Song Contest, I'm really sorry. I get it. I'm really sorry. This episode did at least do one thing that I've been wanting for a long time, and even though there were leaks everywhere, like, at least we got a surprise regeneration. To all the general public are concerned, this is a surprise regeneration, and it's about time. But it's done under circumstances where it had to be a surprise. And then there's just the fact that Ncuti Gatwa's era feels so incomplete. We barely got to know this version of the Doctor because we got rid of all of his character development through a bi-generation. And then they have this whole theory that bi-generation is a Time Lord's way of kind of repopulating. And it's like, great, giving even more fuel to the fire that Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor's illegitimate. That David Tennant's still the true Doctor, and that Ncuti Gatwa is just his son, effectively. We haven't explained the ins and outs of how that works. I'm honestly surprised they didn't do it again. But for Ncuti Gatwa's entire era, there was this one big elephant in the room, and that's where's David Tennant? Great. What a dignified note for your Doctor to exist under. And then he gets 2 seasons, both with terrible finales, terrible arcs. He never met the Daleks or the Cybermen or anything like that. His rogues gallery consisted of a CGI Sutek, a CGI Omega, 2 Ranis, one of which isn't really even the Rani. I guess the Toymaker if you count him, but he didn't get any of those iconic Doctor Who rogues. Oh yeah, speaking of Rogue, remember that Rogue cameo? What the hell happened to that? And then he regenerates into Billie Piper. Now, I'm gonna start off by saying, Billie Piper's an incredible actor. Like, genuinely, she would be incredible as the Doctor. And that's all the good I have to say about this decision. Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor is now sandwiched between David Tennant and Billie Piper. First things first, Russell T Davies, create new opportunities for budding actors challenge impossible. Just think, there's so many actors out there that would kill for this role, and we're going back to someone who's had quite a tenure, who has quite the legacy on this show. This is MCU Doctor Doom levels of stunt casting. This is the equivalent of eating out of the bin. You had Rose, you had a great character, you had an incredible actor in the role. Billie Piper was excellent as Rose, she gave it her all, and that's a great character. And her story was told, it was done. But now we've brought her back out so she can now be Doctor Who. How creatively bankrupt do you have to be? Why can't we just have a goddamn normal generation, one that isn't David Tennant, isn't a bi-generation, and isn't Billie Piper? Because it's now going to be another elephant in the room. Why did the Doctor pick this face? Oh my god, she's inevitably going to meet 14, isn't she? You couldn't just cast a new actor in the role. Heck, if you wanted to dig around in the well of previous actors, Jo Martin was right there. Oh, and by the way, she gets nothing to do either. I feel so sorry for Jo Martin fans. It is like we are finding new ways to make a complete mockery out of Regeneration. David Tennant being the 14th Doctor was one thing. It was a little different. Okay for an anniversary thing. But then we had bi-generation, and now the Doctor regenerating into Billie Piper. God, make it stop. Just be normal. And speaking of just, like, cannibalizing itself, we had so many references to previous episodes. So many little name drops to things from previous seasons. This episode is inbred. Like, that's how I would describe this. Oh, you got the Rani. Oh, you got Conrad back. Look, it's Poppy from Space Babies. Oh, look, here's Omega. Oh my god, it's Jodie Whittaker. She is back. Oh, Billie Piper. Oh my god. And is any of it good? It's awful. It's awful. And I gotta theorize now for a second. I gotta theorize. Because Russell T Davies, the writer of seasons 1 through 4, the writer of Torchwood Children of Earth. Years and years, it's a sin. When he came back to Doctor Who, when it was announced it was coming back, I wasn't expecting it to be like the good old days. I was expecting to see a matured Russell T Davies. I was expecting to see some of the more mature nuances of shows like It's a Sin in Doctor Who. I was expecting that great character writing back. Belinda barely gets any screen time in this episode. She spends most of it in a box. And we're supposed to buy her love for this baby, how much she's pining for this baby, despite the fact she's only had this baby for a single episode. And in that episode, it was a mystery, so we never really got the chance to develop that. We've got Ruby calling back to memories with Conrad that we never actually got to see. So, it's time for theories. What the hell happened? Okay, so theory number 1. Russell T Davies didn't want to come back. This is the one I'm putting the most stock into. Russell T Davies did not want to come back, but felt his hand was forced. So it's no secret that Power of the Doctor, there existed a cut where Jodie Whittaker did not regenerate into David Tennant. She just went off into the sunset with regeneration pouring out of her. And the future was up in the air. It wasn't until the last minute that they got a new showrunner. This is no secret. I think what happened was that basically Russell T Davies was given the understanding that if he doesn't come back to the show, it's probably on ice. So he came back to ensure a future for it. Which, if anything, is good. It's why I probably won't make many personal judgments of Russell T Davies. Even though I think with this era he's turned in some of the absolute worst scripts of his entire career, it's nothing personal. What I will say is you don't punish the audience for that. I'm an audience member, I didn't ask you to come back. Maybe it would have been better if Doctor Who had just ended. Because in today's TV climate, They're gonna bring it back anyway eventually. Let some bright spark fresh out of university come in with their pitch for a Doctor Who revival in 10 years' time. You can't force a show to stay on the air. Giving more credence to this is the fact that multiple times he was asked if he would make some kind of return for anniversary events. Stephen Moffat invited him to co-write Day of the Doctor. He declined. Stephen Moffat invited him to write the Dalek two-parter in Series 9, and he declined. But then suddenly he's back, and it's way worse than it was before. Other factors are the fact that as a writer now, he has nothing to prove. When he first came on to Doctor Who, he was kind of an industry upstart. He was shaking up the established order. Him reviving Doctor Who was ballsy. He was a younger, hungry writer. Now he's a man in his 60s with an accomplished career. And that's nothing to be scoffed at, but how much goodwill has just gone down the drain now? My other theory is that he bi-generated into a shit writer. I really want to see what drama he's working on next. I want to see something he's working on that isn't Doctor Who. See if he's still got it. But I'm firm and pretty unhappy about this, but I'm firm in my stance that he needs to leave Doctor Who. He's got nothing more to give. He's spent, he's done, and these past 2 seasons haven't been great. Season 1 had a handful of episodes that I guess went above a 6 out of 10. Season 2 had 2. One of them admittedly was written by Russell T Davies, that's Lux. The other one, Story in the Engine. But so much of this has just been anger fiction and fan pandering, but without rhyme, reason, context, or anything like that. And I just don't believe that the writer of all these great things would stand by this. He knows it's bad. There is no way he doesn't. So for things I liked, okay, I thought the Bone Creatures fight with the unit building was actually pretty cool. Like, that was genuinely cool. Russell T Davies is much better when his finales consist of the big pew-pew-pew action set pieces. Like, Doomsday was the epitome of that. The Series 2 finale she tells you not to worry about. You had the big pew-pew-pew, and, like, you had substance behind the big pew-pew-pew, but the pew-pew-pew was certainly in there. The pew-pew-pew isn't much of this episode. Other bits I liked, I guess I liked the Jodie Whittaker scene enough. I don't know why it was there, but it was just kind of cool. But it's fan service, isn't it? For no reason. Why was she back? I don't know. So yeah, wrapping up, what a sorry, desperate state. This is an absolute mockery of the show. And I'm not saying that in some big melodramatic way. This, how? How can you defend this? Tell me how to defend this. If you want to defend it in the comments, by all means, go for it. But, I don't get it. I don't get it. I can't think of a single level on which this works. This is even worse than Empire of Death. It's drivel. It's nonsense. None of the emotional moments are earned. They don't get the screen time too because 8 episodes isn't enough. This has to be bad on purpose. This really has to be bad on purpose. Russell T Davies, go. I'm speaking as a fan. I'm speaking as someone who loves a lot of your work. Go. You're done. You're washed. This is hurting not just the legacy of Doctor Who. This is hurting your legacy. And also, I'm getting pretty tired of hearing about Russell complaining about criticism from fans. It's justified. Not all of it is alt-right grifters. Your audience just wants to be respected. We don't want key jangling. We don't want to be reminded of the classic era. We don't want flashbacks. We don't want to see the next old lady mystery box turn out to be Fenric. I don't want to see you write a single other thing for this franchise. Because I am done. It deserves to be cancelled. And like Russell T Davies said, someday a fan will bring it back in the future, and I'm happy to wait for that day now. Because I am sure as shit not watching the next season. I'm done. I cannot watch this show that meant so much to me on so many different levels just crawl around in its own filth anymore. I cannot see any more of Russell T Davies, who was my childhood hero, doing the narrative equivalent to sniffing his own farts. I'm done. Goodbye.